can we, as adults, grow new nerve cells? There is still some confusion about that question, as this is a fairly new field of research. For example, I was talking to one of my colleagues, Robert, who is an oncologist, and he was telling me, Sandrine, this is puzzling. Some of my patients that have been told they are cured of their cancer still develop symptoms of depression. And I responded to him, well, from my point of view, that makes sense. The drug you give to your patients that stops the cancer cells multiplying also stop the newborn neurons being generated in their brain. And then Robert looked at me like I was crazy and said, but Sandrine, these are adult patients. Adults do not grow new nerve cells. And much to his surprise, I said, well, actually, we do.
Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host, the expert Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 331. Hope you're amazing as always. I really do. Still in the UK. It's getting cold, so it's definitely time to get out of here. Over to a few different countries, and I'm really pumped about that for Christmas and New Year. And we're at that time of year, you know what I mean? We're at that time of year. And everyone focuses, especially in the UK, but everyone focuses in the world on Christmas. Well, I shouldn't say in the world, because there's a lot of countries that don't even celebrate Christmas, you know? But at the end of the day, right, there's two sides of this coin, and that's what I want to talk about today. There's one side of the coin that you have, everyone's happy, right? Everyone's got family around them, you've got presents, you're celebrating. All you see is the brightness and the happiness of Christmas, you know? Especially in the UK, because it's cold, you got all the lights everywhere. It's dark early, you know, you got the smells, the taste of the markets. It's really, really cool, you know? It's like little Harry Potter. It really is. But there's the other side of this. And the other side is that people are alone. Do you know what I mean? People don't have family. People don't have money. People are in parts of the country that are really struggling. They could be struggling in every capacity. You could have health issues, right? But the biggest thing what this can create, especially the winter, is that SAD syndrome, you know, seasonal disorder, which can create depression. And besides the seasonal disorder, this time of year can really create sadness in people. It can. I'm not here to talk about sadness. What I'm here to talk about is understanding your brain so you can use it correctly and then start being able to create happiness. Do you know what I mean? Because what we're taught when we're young is, well, the science teaches us, right? It teaches us a few things in the past. It teaches us that the way we think was fixed, right, for a start. And it also taught us that DNA was fixed as well. So brown eyes, blue hair, brown eyes, blue eyes. All of these things, well, they were fixed. You couldn't change them. And you might not be able to change your eye color, but what you can change through is what they discover about being able to pass anxiety on, trauma on, belief systems on, money belief systems on, all of these things. Now, all of those things can be changed through the different expression of the gene. So what they're talking about and they understand now is something called neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is an understanding of the brain that it regenerates. It can change. Do you know what I mean? So if it can change, that's another neuroscience study called neuroplasticity. The brain is malleable. So what we're talking about is actual brain health. And brain health, it affects hormones, it affects brain chemicals, it affects happiness, it affects all of these things. So when we're not aware of that and Christmas is coming, or whatever stage in life, I'm just using Christmas because what date are we on? We're on 23rd of November. But what happens is this can become a deep pattern, okay? And it becomes a whole. And sometimes with depression or environmental circumstances or whatever's going on, it becomes very difficult to see the light, very difficult to see a different perspective. You know, we've all had these moments where someone says to you, oh, you know, just harden up, they say in New Zealand, right? Toughen up, they say in the UK. Or it's like, just be happy. What are you doing? Just look at everything around you. But when you feel like you're in a cloud, and the cloud is emotion, isn't it near impossible to be able to see that bright, to be able to see that change, to be able to see the future, to be able to be grateful? Yes, it is. It's very difficult, right? So what this episode is about is showing you a TED talk from quite a few years ago, to be honest. It's not brand new anymore, but because this study's really evolved. But what I want to show you is that by using physiology, by understanding the triggers, by understanding your environment, by understanding the people around you, what you're putting into your head, and how to really take control back of your mental state. And think about this in business. You know, I'm talking about life, but it is life. Everything's business. Everything's growth. No matter what you're doing, whether it's having a kid, that's going to grow you. Whether it's a business, that's going to grow you. Whether it's you pushing yourself in a sports, that's going to grow you, right? It's going to grow your capacity mentally to be able to perform at your highest level. So if you've not got mental control, then what that means is then, yes, your brain is going to start building patterns around what it doesn't want, I should say, what it doesn't want. And that can create a very messy circumstance. So, for example, a lot of entrepreneurs, because of their past, they've had mistakes in business. So suddenly they create a ceiling around what's possible. Do you know what I mean? So when you start thinking about money or launching a business or doing something, your brain starts to remember all of the times that it didn't have the success or someone ripped you off, or you know what I mean? These are called limiting beliefs, sure, but it goes much deeper than a limiting belief. Okay, it goes to genetics, it goes to deep values, it goes to state changing, it goes to all of these things that enable us to really take charge of our brain. But again, if we don't, it can become an absolute mess. And that's what happens to so many people. Because depression or sadness or stress, it can be changed. And I don't mean it can be like just, see a different perspective now. Well, yes, okay. But if you've been pumping a muscle, which is your mind muscle, for a decade, you know what I mean? Then it's very hard to just start pumping a different muscle. There's a sequence. There are techniques and tools and systems that, just most people don't understand. So that's what I do for people. You know what I mean? So it could be getting ready for an IPO. You're launching an online business. You could be scaling from 6 to 7 figures. You must make money now, or something's gone wrong, or you are doing a merger and the pressure's intense. Well, guess what? Yes, by having your brain designed and built the correct way, it means the habits and the way you see money, success, how this next thing is going to happen, organization, flow states, all of these things have to be pre-designed and pre-installed. If they're not, then we're in a reactive mode. Does that make sense? I hope so. So that's what we're going to get into today with this episode. It's pretty epic. She's really cool, this lady. And let's jump into it. And speaking of jumping into it, make sure that you're heading over to andymurphy.online and putting the final touches to all of these brands right now. Just been dealing with a few health issues, but we're back on form. So make sure that you're heading over to andymurphy.online. Why? Because you have the 8-Figure Thinker coming out. Boom. You have what else coming out? Yes, you have the Radical Formula with Ryan Alford and myself. That's going to be badass. And I hope you listened to the episode a couple of episodes ago. Where he interviewed me, we connected, and now we're launching a brand. What else? Well, we have the Genius Trader coming out. That's all final, very final stages. So if you want to be up on all of this and in that VIP list, then head over to andymurphy.online. You can download what? Well, download something free. Get your mornings dialed in unconsciously. Get your brain pumping. It's one of the best tools that you can use to get mental control in the mornings, and it's free. It's called the Fire Mind Morning. Also, if you're a reader, go and learn all about brainwaves, frequencies, state changes in the Total Control Blueprint. That's a book. So go and do all of those things now and check the show notes out for everything else. Make sure you're hanging out with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. How'd you find me? Really easy. Just type in Andy Murphy Mindsets. Okay. Should we jump into this? Let's jump into this. Okay, I will see you at the end of the show. Enjoy.
Can we, as adults, grow new nerve cells? There is still some confusion about that question, as this is a fairly new field of research. For example, I was talking to one of my colleagues, Robert, who is an oncologist, and he was telling me, Sandrine, this is puzzling. Some of my patients that have been told they are cured of their cancer still develop symptoms of depression. And I responded to him, well, from my point of view, that makes sense. The drug you give to your patients that stops the cancer cells multiplying also stop the newborn neurons being generated in their brain. And then Robert looked at me like I was crazy and said, but Sandrine, these are adult patients. Adults do not grow new nerve cells. And much to his surprise, I said, well, actually, we do. And this is a phenomenon that we call neurogenesis. So now, Robert is not a neuroscientist. And when he went to medical school, he was not taught what we know now, that the adult brain can generate new nerve cells. So Robert, being a good doctor he is, wanted to come to my lab to understand a little bit better the topic. And I took him for a tour of one of the most exciting parts of the brain when it comes to neurogenesis. And this is the hippocampus. So this is this gray structure in the center of the brain. And what we know since already very long is that this is important for learning and memory, and mood and emotion. However, what we have learned more recently is that this is one of the unique structures of the adult brain where new neurons can be generated. And if we slice through the hippocampus and zoom in, what you actually see here in blue is a newborn neuron in an adult mouse brain. So when it comes to human brain, my colleague Jonas Friesen from the Karolinska Institute has estimated that we produce 700 new neurons per day in the hippocampus. So you might think this is not much according to the billions of neurons we have, but by the time we will turn 50, we will have all exchanged the neuron we were born with in that structure with adult-born neurons. So why are these new neurons important, and what are their functions?
Hey crew, so did that blow your mind as much as me? I don't know if it did, but if it did, think about that, right? We know about the hippocampus, right? The hippocampus, whatever you want to call it, right? The grey structure in the center of the brain, right? Memory, learning, mood, emotions, that's what regulates it, okay? So that's an important thing to understand. But did you get the next bit? Yes, we can regenerate neurons. Do you understand what that means? It's insane. It's so powerful, right? So if we can regenerate neurons, then our brain can keep building. That's why they talk about intelligent people living longer, because they're constantly learning. Right, so this is what we're going to get into in this episode in a few minutes. She's going to go and talk about that. But think about that: 700 neurons per day that are generating about you're 50 years old. 50. You know what I mean? You've basically replaced them all because they've regenerated. So what that shows me is that as a human being, we are constantly regenerating our taste buds, our cells, right? And now we're talking about our actual neurons regenerate. So what this is really showing is that you can't be ever stuck. You can't ever be stuck in life. You're like, yeah, I can, Andy. Look, I'm down a hole. Yeah, psychological, maybe a hole. I don't know. But understand this, right? To be stuck in life means that you are the only single thing that ever existed on earth that is stuck. Because everything regenerates. Everything changes. Every single thing changes, right? So we could go deeper into that. You could go into rivers and everything cycles. Everything changes. So if that's the case, then you've got to look at where you are in your business and life right now and understand that being stuck is a choice.
So first, we know that's very important for learning and memory. And in the lab, we have shown that if we block the ability of the adult brain to produce new neurons in the hippocampus, then we block certain memory abilities. And this is especially new and true for spatial recognition. So like how you navigate your way in the city.
Okay, cool. So that's interesting again. Maybe it's just me that's interested in this, but I'm sure if you keep listening, you'll be interested too. Because again, what they're talking about is that cancer drug. That's what she's referencing to. And again, it's blocking certain the brain function in the hippocampus, right? So you're not feeling the same emotions, but it's also affecting what? Yes, it's affecting people's memories. And do you know what was crazy? What I found out about Botox? Do you know Botox, right? People use it for all different stuff. They jab it in the face. They jab it in nerves to stop nerves if they're getting sciatica and different nerve damage. Does it work? Yeah, what does it do in the face? Well, it deadens the nerves, which does what? Yes, it stops the wrinkles. Genius, hey? And if you are using Botox right now, I'm about to tell you something, or someone that you know, I'm about to tell you something that might blow you away. Okay? It might probably stop you doing it too. Well, I know somebody that's used Botox for probably the past 10 years. Good amounts, you know what I mean? It's probably no more than other people. And she has dementia. And what's been shown is because what does it do? You're injecting a poison into your face to deaden the nerves so you can stop wrinkles. But guess what is close to your face? Yeah, your brain. So she has literally now got chronic dementia, and it's 100% from Botox. So think about that.
So we are still learning a lot, and they are not only important for memory capacity, but also for the quality of the memory. And they will have been helpful to add time about memory, and they will help differentiate very similar memory. Like, how do you find your bike that you park at the station every day in the same area, but in a slightly different position? And more interesting to my colleague Robert is the research we have been doing on neurogenesis and depression. So in animal model of depression, we have seen that they have a lower level of neurogenesis. And if we give antidepressants, then we increase the production of these newborn neurons, and we decrease the symptom of depression, establishing a clear link between neurogenesis and depression. But moreover, if you just block neurogenesis, then you block the efficacy of the antidepressant. So by then, Robert had understood that very likely his patients were suffering of depression even after being cured of their cancer, because the cancer drug had stopped the newborn neuron to be generated. And it will take time to generate new neurons that reach a normal functions.
Okay, I think that's really, really powerful to understand. Do you know what I mean? Because this is what's going on in the brain. With antidepressant meds, I think they're great for a period of time. But I don't think they're good for long-term use. But because they're forcing the growth of new brain cells, right? Which is fantastic, right? That's why you start to get serotonin release and you start to feel good. But there's so many other ways to do it. Having a chemical, external chemical put inside of you to produce something is never the best. But it's not a precursor. Precursor meaning it helps you generate your own. Now, some antidepressants do that. But the challenge is pharmaceutical companies. Fucking pharmaceutical companies. You know what I mean? What do? Well, they add addictive elements in it. So it becomes very hard to come off it, so people stay on it. It makes people sick. You know, when they try to come off it, why? Because they want you to stay on it. And it's not because they love you, it's because they can make money. Because if it's too difficult to get off, then what do people do? They stay on it. And again, does it produce a result? Yes, some of them do, absolutely. I'm nothing against it. But there's other ways to help yourself and manage yourself. Now, again, I'm not a doctor. And I'm definitely not a neuroscientist, and I'm definitely not somebody who works in that field. But I have seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the years. And what you understand is that if someone's eating terrible, sitting still, watching terrible stuff, and their environment's horrible, and guess what? Their brain is going to function like, right? They're not going to generate new chemicals. They're not going to stimulate this neurogenesis. They're not going to have a healthy brain. And that means then, guess what? Well, it's going to lead to depression. So there's other ways to do this, and this lady actually goes into this in a few minutes, which I do love. I think it's massively important. But just so you understand, if you're depressed right now, then there's other ways to do this. You know what I mean? Other ways to look at the world. Is it easy? No, of course it's not easy. But is it necessary? Absolutely.
So, collectively, now we think we have enough evidence to say that neurogenesis is a target of choice if we want to improve memory formation or mood, or even prevent their decline associated with aging or associated with stress. So the next question is, can we control neurogenesis? The answer is yes. And we are going to do now a little quiz. So I'm going to give you a set of behavior and activity, and you tell me if you think they will increase neurogenesis or if they will decrease neurogenesis. Are we ready? Okay, let's go. So what about learning? Increasing? Yes. So learning will increase the production of these new neurons. How about stress? Yes. Stress will decrease the production of new neurons in the hippocampus. How about sleep deprivations? Indeed, it will decrease neurogenesis. How about sex? Oh, wow. Yes, you're right. It will increase the production of new neurons. However, it's all about balance here. We don't want to fall in a situation about too much sex leading to sleep deprivations. So how about getting older? So neurogenesis rate will decrease as we get older, but this is still occurring. And then finally, how about running? So I will let you judge that one by yourself. So this is one of the first studies that was carried out by one of my mentors, Rusty Gage from the Salk Institute, showing that the environment can have an impact on the production of new neurons. And here you see a section of the hippocampus of a mouse that had no running wheel in its cage. And the little black dot you see are actually newborn neurons to be. And now you see a section of the hippocampus of a mouse that had a running wheel in its cage. So you see the massive increase of the black dots representing the new neurons to be. So activity impact on neurogenesis, but that's not all. What you eat will have an effect on the production of new neurons in the hippocampus. So here we have a sample of diet, a nutrient that have been shown to have efficacy. And I'm just going to point a few out to you. So calorie restriction of 20 to 30% will increase neurogenesis. Intermittent fasting, so spacing the time between your meal, will increase neurogenesis. Intake of flavonoid, which is contained in dark chocolate or blueberry, will increase neurogenesis. Omega-3 fatty acid present in fatty fish like salmon will increase the production of these new neurons. Conversely, a diet rich in high saturated fat will have a negative impact on neurogenesis. Ethanol, intake of alcohol, will decrease neurogenesis. However, not everything is lost. Resveratrol, which is contained in red wine, has been shown to promote the survival of these new neurons. So next time you're at a dinner party, you might want to reach for this possibly neurogenesis neutral drink.
So let's jump in there to both of those things, right? We're talking about a mouse. Guess what? You give it a wheel, it creates neurogenesis in the brain, which then does what? Stimulates the brain to be healthy. Guess what? Oh, surprise, surprise! If you eat crappy foods, guess what happens? Oh, your brain doesn't have neurogenesis, so you start to feel depressed. Shocking, right? But if we eat healthy, wow. Do you know what I mean? Rocket science. No, it's not rocket science. That's why, she's promoting alcohol. Obviously, there's sugars and there's other things which are bad for you. But she's talking about dark berries and things that create neurogenesis, right? But she's French, so I get it. You know, they like the wine. And there's nothing wrong with wine. There's nothing wrong with anything. It's just everything in moderation, especially with alcohol. There's consequences of that inside the body with sugar. That means insulin spikes and it can cause other problems, including making you fat, right? Because it's sugar. So, and that causes more problems with the heart, But we're not talking about that. But do you understand how important this is? Do you understand how important it is for your business, making money, moving forwards, being happy, creating impact in the world? Do you see how important it is to get hold of this? Yes, I hope so. I hope so.
And then finally, let me point out the last one, a quirky one. So Japanese groups are fascinated about food textures, and they have shown that actually soft diet impairs neurogenesis as opposed to food that require mastication, chewing, or crunchy food. So all of this data, where we need to look at the cellular level, have been generated using animal model. But these diets have also been given to human participants. And what we could see is that the diet modulates memory and mood in the same direction as it modulates neurogenesis.
Did you hear that? Did you hear it? Modulates mood and neurogenesis by eating correctly. Yeah, eating correctly. So if you're drinking soup all day, that's probably not a good thing, but it might be a good thing for you nutritionally, but maybe not for the brain function. Again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I've just got experience around this. It's different. So basically, by getting your mouth to do what it's supposed to do by crunching food, it activates the exact process in the brain and body to be able to do what? Yes, regenerate. That's all this is about.
Such as calorie restriction will improve memory capacity, whereas high-fat diet will exacerbate symptoms of depression, as opposed to omega-3 fatty acid, which increase neurogenesis and also help to decrease the symptom of depression. So we think that the effect of diet on mental health, on memory and mood, is actually mediated by the production of the new neuron in the hippocampus. And it's not only what you eat, but it's also the texture of the food when you eat it and how much of it you eat. On our side, neuroscientists interested in neurogenesis, we need to understand better the function of these new neurons and how we can control their survival and their production. We also need to find a way how to protect the neurogenesis of Robert's patients. And on your side, I leave you in charge with your neurogenesis. Thank you.
So crew, there's the end of episode 331. Hope you liked it. Hope you got something from that, and hope you're looking at your life and your mental state a completely different way. Hopefully you're looking at your mood and regulation a very different way, your food a very different way, and then you're looking at how this creates performance on a daily basis inside of your business and life. You know, if you're not doing these things, it's very hard to be stable in business. It's very hard to be stable at home. It's very hard to be stable in every area of your life if you're not taking action. And action is the key thing. Do you know what I mean? And every decision that we make leads us towards what we want or away from what we want. Expansion always happens. We either resist it or we allow it. If we allow it, then we create change. And if we create change, then guess what that means? Well, it means that we can achieve our goals, our vision, the purpose why we're here on life, right? And it might be difficult, but who cares, right? Just do your best. Do your best at every moment of the day, every night, every morning, every interaction, every task that you're doing. If you do your best, then you're going to be proud. And if you're proud, then guess what happens? Yes, your brain is going to produce the right chemicals. Makes sense? So, if you want some support with that, definitely come and find me. I'm not going to go through food, because I'll connect you with people who do. But what I will go do is I will train your brain to respond like it never has. I will unlock performance in you that you didn't know existed. I will create routine systems and rechange the wiring in your brain to see millions of dollars, to see business deals going perfectly, to do anything that you choose at the highest level. That's what we do. So if that's you, then come and find me. Come and find me. Where? Well, you know where. AndyMurphy.online, Andy Murphy Mindset, all over Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We got some cool things happening. The Genius Traders launching. We've got the Radical Formula with Ryan Alford and myself. That's happening now. We got the 8-Figure Thinker Mental Training Academy being launched. All of these things are badass, and they're like nothing else that's out there on the market. I promise you, this is some high level stuff. It's not white belt stuff that what's out there, mostly out there, right? This is black belt stuff. And if you want to come and learn from black belts, then hey, let's get connected. And speaking of connecting, hit those show notes, and yeah, that's the end of the episode. So much love. Go and write me a review, connect with me somewhere, and go and kick ass. Until the next time, much love. And oh yeah, one more thing. Why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.